Welcome, everybody, and this is Healthy Mindset, transforming our lives one thought at a time. Believe it or not, this is episode 3 for us. We've been filming once a month, and this is our 3rd episode, so this is like a milestone. We might go out for dinner tonight after the show. I wanted to speak about a couple of things before we get into the interview session with Dr. Beth. But before I do that, we have a lot of folks out there that know of someone that struggles with being positive. In other words, they're always looking at it from a pessimistic standpoint. And it's funny because someone said to me the other day, yeah, so-and-so is still complaining and still doing this and that, and they just don't see the good in anything, but they'll figure it out. And don't we always say that? Maybe not, but I find myself saying that a lot. They'll figure it out. But the answer to that question is they may not figure it out. And that's pretty scary to me. I heard one of my mentors speaking on YouTube, and he was saying how a lot of people die between 80 and 90 years old, but they stop living around 25 to 35, you know? And that's the thing. Most people get ingrained in their habits, in the doldrums of whatever they're doing, and they just grin and bear it, and they check out of life and then just sleepwalk themselves through life. It's a shame. But I digress. Let me connect you now to 2 things that I wanted to touch base on. When an outside circumstance happens, we can either respond or we can react. Respond is more positive, it's more calculated, it's more thought-provoking, and it's more, I want to say, somewhat relaxed, and you're basically doing it from a standpoint where things are going to run a little bit smoother, so to speak. You don't rush into things like a reaction may be. When we react, you know, it's the name goes with it, knee-jerk reaction, right? We tend to be haphazard, and we tend to be more reactionary or more emotional. And sometimes that can get us in trouble. And I wanted to share a story with all of you about responding and reacting. When I first got into the insurance business in 1994, few of my friends were busting my chops saying, oh, geez, you're going to a boring and dull industry. And the first day on the job, I'll never forget it, a call came into the office, and a client had asked about if there was coverage on his homeowner's policy for a dog, and an aggressive dog, this, that, and the other thing. So I had inquired about what was going on. And my boss at the time had said to me, we have this client, and he lives out in the woods. He's got 5 acres of wooded property, and you can barely see his neighbor. His neighbor is next door, but you can only see his house in the winter because of all the vegetation that's not there. And that neighbor has a white, fluffy dog called Hero. Well, Hero and our client's lab, it's a black lab called Bear, they didn't get along, and they had an interaction, but it wasn't too bad. They separated the 2 of them, and they made sure that they would not be in each other's company for a particular incident. Well, the story goes, Bear had went out into the woods, and he came back absolutely muddy, covered with water, filthy, and he had something in his jaw, in his mouth, which looked like a beaver. But it wasn't a beaver, but they couldn't tell what it was. It was all brown, it was dripping, it was all muddy. So our client had grabbed a hose and washed off the two of them. And sure enough, as they washed off what they thought was the beaver, it was in fact Hero, the white fluffy dog, and he was dead. So now our client was scared to death. What do I do? What should we do? Him and his wife didn't, they panicked. So they cleaned the dog up. They brought it over to the neighbor's house, and they put it on the back deck, and they put it nice like he was sleeping. And then when the neighbor would come home, they figured maybe he thought he'd have a heart attack, and, he just died. So they didn't want to take any responsibility. Couple days later, they got a phone call from the neighbor. Said, geez, do you see anything strange the past couple of days? And, our client played dumb. He's like, no, I haven't heard or seen anything. Why? What's going on? He's like, well, Hero, he died. And my neighbor was like, our client was like, oh, geez, no, what happened? He's like, well, that's not so much that he died, because he died about 3 weeks ago. We buried him in the backyard, and now he's on our back porch, on our deck, all cleaned up. We don't know what the heck happened. So our client was kind of panic-stricken, didn't know what to do. Fortunately, he spoke to his neighbor and fessed up. He told him what happened, and the neighbor actually got a big laugh out of it, and everything was fine, and they actually became great friends. So that's a point taken as far as responding or reacting. And we tend to all react sometimes, not to that extent, but we tend to all react. The last thing I wanted to touch base on before we get to our interview is paradigm. Some of you may or may not have heard about a paradigm. A paradigm is a mental program, folks, that's in our subconscious mind that has exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. And that paradigm is created from when we're babies, when we can't even remember, and maybe even before that. Because that paradigm is created, one, by genetics, the people that created the baby, and number two, our environment. So when a baby is born, his sub or her subconscious mind is wide open, and they let everything just filter right in. That's how we speak the language we speak, eat the foods we eat, have the beliefs that we have. It's from these paradigms. Now, as we move on in age, we can create our own paradigms, our own beliefs, and our own mental programs. But what we need to do at times is to shift that paradigm. And that's exactly what we're here to do on this Healthy Mindset show, is to shift our paradigm just in small ways to make a big difference. So that's what everything is about. Who's coming up today? We have Dr. Beth. I don't think there's going to be any other props other than Dr. Beth and I. And we will come right back to you in about 2 and 2. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back, Paul. Happy spring to you.
It really is good to be back. I think this is the best segment of the show because I'm more relaxed.
Are you?
And I have a buddy to kind of share my interests with. I think that's good. And happy spring. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you very much. It's going to be May 1st tomorrow.
Wow. May 1st.
It's a pleasure. Very nice, Paul. Great to have you back.
Yes, things are well. And how are things with you?
Things are great. I just came back from a phenomenal seminar last week in Boston. Lots to share, lots to say.
Similar to this industry.
Similar to what we're going to talk about today.
That's great.
And regarding some affirmations, if you remember our
I'm
conversation
all about affirmations.
Yesterday, we were having some discussion about affirmations and your positive programs. So we're going to just start right out with a couple of questions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready for them. Fire them away.
All right. So Regarding the affirmations, Paul, do you have or do your own affirmations as part of your own program?
Yeah, that is a yes. And specifically, an affirmation or an auto-suggestion, which is basically a suggestion from yourself to yourself, and it's a statement, an affirmation that you repetitively make over and over to ingrain it into your psyche, if you will. I have an alarm set on my phone.
Okay.
Every 3 hours, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, I recite that affirmation. It's a goal of mine that I recite. It's got a monetary component, a career component, and somewhat of a relationship component that's included. And it's important to say that it's not only important to recite your affirmation, but to become emotionally connected to it.
Of course.
If you become that affirmation, if you achieve that affirmation, how are you going to feel? How are you going to see? What are you going to see? What are you going to hear? You know, what are some of these senses? Bring your senses into the equation and change those up as far as bringing the emotion to it. So yeah, so affirmations are very important, but most people think of it as just words and it's positive mumbo jumbo, and it's not the case at all when you make it emotionally impactful and then you act on it.
Do you do yours only at the 2 o'clock? You said you set your alarm at 2,
so
because I do my affirmations. I do them at one time, and I do them, actually repeat them 100 times.
Yeah.
That's my exercise.
Right, and there's variations to that. You know, there's some variations that one person had said to me, I need you to write your affirmation out 100 times. I'm like, write it out 100 times? He's like, yes, with your opposite hand. I said, oh my goodness, this is like, you know, fraternity, hazing games, for crying out loud. But what that does, it gets you thinking differently from a different perspective in aspect. For all full disclosure, I've never done it 100 times. I've written it 30 times.
Well, I have found just speaking it, for me, speaking it just really is empowering.
Yeah, that's great.
And it becomes real,
Yeah.
you know, to believe it.
I think you're getting emotionally connected to it then.
But for the people that you're working with your program, how would you have them even begin if affirmations is brand new to them? Could you just even give us like an example?
Sure. I think, Beth, what's important when getting someone interested in what we're talking about, first and foremost, they have to have an achievement, a desire, or an aspiration. So, you know, my affirmation may make no sense to them. Yours may make no sense to them. It has to be something that makes sense to them. So they first need to come up with what they want out of life. Do they want better relationships? Do they want a better career? Do they want better finances? You know, do they want better health? All of those may be, all the above.
Right,
but find out exactly which one, because you can't work on 4 things at once. It's just going to be sensory overload. So find out exactly what you want to achieve, and where you want to go in life. And then from there, to answer your question, then you can figure out what exactly it is that you want to affirm.
Okay, gotcha.
You know,
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what it's all about. So there are some people out there that are reciting throughout the day 3 different affirmations because they're grounded and structured into the program well enough that they can do that, and they know where they are right now. But a lot of people that are first new, like put someone on roller skates or ice skates, you know, and tell them to skate backwards. They're just trying to stand up, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Same with an affirmation. You know, get something simple and then go from there. You know, so.
Well, this kind of leads into our second question regarding the affirmations.
We're leading in.
Leading into our questions. I'm the interviewer. You
just stay quiet.
Okay. So again, regarding the affirmations, how can the affirmations actually change a person's thought process? and attitude. Like we have talked about previously before the show about how it can change your neural pathways, actually.
You learned about
from a negative thinking to a positive. It actually does change the chemistry of your thinking.
It does. And Beth, what we have to understand is what I basically initiated earlier. It's this affirmation that we can't just put it into our mind and think that it's just going to create itself. We have to put it into our mind and get emotionally connected with it. For example, if you wanted to earn $1 million a year, saying it and being repetitive is excellent. It's very important. But then you need to emotionalize with it. What would I buy with this $1 million a year that I'm earning? Not how am I going to make it? Mm-hmm. How am I going to be? What type of person am I going to be? What am I going to purchase? How am I going to spend that money? Am I going to be philanthropic? And the thing is, once we start coming up with the reasons why we want to be a millionaire in this example, will give us plenty of fuel to make it happen.
Well, I am happy to hear your feedback on that. How about another example? Let's just somebody who might be working with your program right now, somebody who might be brand new using your program that you might be sharing this with. Like we talked about using a mirror.
All right, I do.
Okay, that was.
Yeah, when I first get up, I say a prayer and then I put toothpaste on the toothbrush. I'll do my affirmation right in the mirror, but I whisper it because I don't want to wake up my wife. She's in the bed sleeping, so I'll get in trouble if that's the case. But so that kind of kicks it off, and then from there it's 3 hours from 4:50. I think it's how I set the time. So 7:50 a.m. would be the next one. And some clients that I work with are very skeptical. And I said, listen, that's fine, but you need to believe first and foremost. And if you don't believe, then you need to believe that I believe. You need to believe in something. And you need to trust the process or trust the affirmations. Because if you don't believe anything, no one's ready for a thing until they believe it can happen.
And don't you feel, again, during our conversations that when you do repetition and do affirmations, you do start to believe it. If you've had low self-esteem or low confidence, and just by saying these affirmations,
Beth,
there's empowerment, as I said earlier.
If you say a lie to yourself enough, you're going to stop believing it.
Right. We got to switch that to a positive.
But the point is, anything with affirmations, And the thing is, you may say, okay, that's not positive. But a lie might very well be the goal that I have because it hasn't happened, right?
Right.
But now it's happened in my mind. I've already made the goal happen in my mind, so now it's just a matter of going at it and getting the reasons why I want to reinforce that goal. So the affirmations are going to confirm of what we technically say, every day. And however, if it's every 3 hours, we just put a knees.
Yeah,
sorry.
Right. Well, hey, you just stay right over in your zone. So I have another interesting question with affirmations. Do you find there is actually a difference if you have to do them at a certain time of the day, or can they be done at different intervals of time?
Yeah, they can be done at.
Because people have very busy lives.
Oh, they do.
Pressed for time, but
well, they do. But my point is, they can be done all times of the day. However, you may be more alert and more with it in the morning. Mm-hmm. So that might be a time to really become emotionally involved with that affirmation. And maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, after you had a heavy lunch or whatever have you, you may not be as with it. It's still important to do that affirmation, regardless of how you feel. Because we can't act on our emotions. We need our intellect to control our emotions, not the other way around.
Very true.
And how often do we act on our emotions sometimes? Something bad happens and we get upset, So it's tough not to, but we need to be able to spin it after.
Well, just like you were talking about earlier, and responding to things, not reacting.
Oh, right, yeah, in my monologue.
Just so
React or respond, yeah.
so have a positive affirmation.
Yeah, no, it's so true. You know what I mean? And sometimes I do such a great job with strangers, but then when I'm home with my loved ones, I may be impatient or reactive. And I can't let my guard down in that respect either. So sometimes I'm my own worst enemy with the people I love the most.
I think we all can be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think is another really important part that we should add to our day? I think it's laughter.
Yeah, laughter's important.
Because we are all
what I was
very,
going
very
to
serious.
say.
We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, well, laughter for us, you and I, it is important because we do it easily. But for some people, laughter may not come easy. So, then don't try to focus on something that you can't do easily. Like someone says you have to meditate. Well, if you're struggling with meditation, do something else right now. Don't try to do something that you can't do. And one of the things that I really focused on, and I think it's important for everyone to do, is a gratitude exercise. Have a journal every day, date it 1 through 10, and write down things that you're grateful for. It could have been a simple Danish and an orange juice that cost €1.20.
Junkin'
Our cameraman would know. He had a lot of great meals, a lot of gratitude there, and some of the meals that were very inexpensive and delicious.
We'll get him on the next show.
Traveling Tom, for sure.
Anyways, yep.
So gratitude is an excellent exercise, but to your point, laughter. It is key. You have to have a lightheartedness of it. People laugh at me every day. I was the class clown in high school and college.
You were very, very serious.
And I have the yearbooks to show it. But that's not usually a good question in a job interview.
Again, that's for another show. We don't want to read what's in Paul's yearbook. Anyways, okay. Moving right along here, okay, because we do have our press for time today, and we actually have some questions later on, too.
Oh, yes, we love questions from the audience.
I know you love
That's my favorite
questions.
segment.
All right, so how else would you like to actually expand your program? Again, we mentioned a little bit about this yesterday, talking about other ideas on a possible other forum for you actually really expanding the program, whether it's a TikTok, podcast, doing more here at the studio.
I think what's great about this forum right now, this talk show that we do on cable TV, it's a great opportunity to reach a segment that we obviously may not be reaching, but more importantly, through the works of the crew, they're able to provide a link that we can share on social media, and folks can see our talk show from the comforts of their own home, from the comforts of their own phone. So that's a great segment that that brings opportunity. The other one I would say is I'm doing Eventbrite invitations. I think some are Splash, some are whatever it may be. It's an invitation that goes out to the universe, so to speak. You create it within that program, and I have a Zoom virtual session once a month. Mm-hmm. Once a month, I do a Zoom virtual session, and I go through an agenda of various topics.
Is that on a certain date and time?
Yeah,
I do
it about I think it's the fourth. Yeah, it's the fourth Friday of the month at 2 p.m.
Okay, because that's important to know to get our listeners out there.
To let them know, you know what I mean? The fourth Tuesday to be look out for our emails, and we can post that on our show credits as well.
So my other question is, I know you have some new participants in your program, I believe, right?
Yes. What are you dancing around?
How is that working with your new people?
My new participants?
Yes.
Like, are the participants human?
Yes, they are. We are not talking pets.
Okay. I'm drawing a blank on the participants.
In your program.
In my program?
Yeah, yeah.
Did I want to talk about specifically? I don't know if there was something that I brought up specifically that I'm not remembering right now.
No, we were just talking about some of the new people, but we'll just stick to you're doing the new program on once a month.
Yeah.
And expanding that.
Well, yeah, and the new participants, that's a one-on-one basis.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I work with people one-on-one. I didn't know if you were looking for
No.
something that we spoke about off camera that, was like a little juicy that we could tell our audience here.
My fault. I just wanted to clarify if it was one-on-one or another.
Yeah, so we do one-on-one.
forum.
We do a virtual type meeting.
Okay.
And that virtual meeting ultimately is to get people to understand the concept and to buy into this scientific philosophy, really. So then it may create a one-on-one down the road or another virtual session. Because I have a lot of repeats on the virtual sessions as well to hear more about what this philosophy really is. And as I said, it's a scientific philosophy. Scientific in the sense that it's mathematical, meaning if you do 1 + 1, it equals 2. And philosophical, which it requires you to believe and have a trust and a belief on the process of how this is. And it's not something that happens overnight. Very rarely does anything happen overnight.
Well, it's like exercising. You have to put it into action. We talked about this. And
someone told me an overnight sensation takes about 7 years to be an overnight sensation.
That was not me.
It takes 7 years to be an overnight sensation. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Overnight success. There is no such thing. And I think a lot of us get a little bit despaired by the fact that, geez, it's not going to happen. It's just too far out there, that goal, that aspiration, that desire. And that's not the case.
No,
that's
that's
our
not
limited beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
You got to believe.
All right, I want to go to the audience questions.
And I think it's just really important to affirm our affirmations.
Yeah, right, for sure.
So I appreciate all your feedback, Paul.
The pleasure is all mine, Beth.
I know. And then
It
we're
really
going to
is.
have to. We're going to have to.
No,
cut
we
it
can
back.
go. We can cut right into the. Do you have the
I
information?
do, as a matter of
let's
fact. Here, you
jump
want to go
into
right
the,
to some of these questions
to
here?
Some of the questions. We
Okay.
have a virtual audience as well as our live studio audience. I don't know if they're still here. They might have
think
fallen
so.
asleep in the back.
Well, no, nobody. Well, question number one. We do have Sarah, and she actually is from Sarasota, Florida.
Sarah from Sarasota.
Yes, she is. And Sarah, her question is, all of this self-awareness, affirmations, positive thinking is really all new to her. It's really her learning to utilize your program. So
Right.
her question is, how would she just start doing some basic steps?
Yeah. Well,
Just some basic steps
I think Sarah
for her to start
is.
taking.
I think she's off to the right start, where it's start with something basic, and that truly is really all you need. You don't need to do a bunch of things, but just start small. And something small, as I just mentioned, is a gratitude exercise. Instead of thinking about everything that can go wrong, think about everything that's gone right. Or the first 5, you can say things that have gone right, and the next 5 can be the things that are going to go right. I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to better my marriage. I'm going to better my relationships at work. And it all starts with our attitude and our disciplines,
Well, like you're saying with the gratitude, she could actually just do having a gratitude list of what to be grateful for at the present moment, here and today.
Right. And there's tons of things that you can be grateful for. Your cell phone, for crying out loud, would be one for me. My car, believe it or not, my space heater. I'm still using it on April 30th. But
We are very grateful to have your car.
yeah, you know what I mean? Right. You know what I mean? So,
Your basic needs can be.
yes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're grateful for something when it's gone. You become grateful for it. So that's what I would say to our friend Sarah in Sarasota, Florida.
Sarasota, Florida.
We picked the questions not so much on the questions, but on the names.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sarah from Sarasota.
And I think Sarah should tune in to your May.
Oh, yes, that virtual session.
Yep, I think that would be very, very
Mindset
helpful.
Mastery, yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to move on to Bill. and I'm not making this up either, it is Bill from Boise,
We have some
Idaho.
alliteration going on.
Yes,
here.
we do. So, our Bill is feeling stuck. These were his words that he shared. He's feeling stagnant and some lacking in his life and also in his day-to-day routine. So we are coming to you, Paul, so you can bring Bill out of the blues.
Yeah, and I
this spring.
think I kind of touched on that in the monologue where, you know, we can always be a little bit stagnant in life and just sleepwalk our ways through life. You know what I mean? We die at age 80, but, you know, we stop living at age 25, right? And to help Bill out, that stagnant, that doldrum of life, it's all up here. Mm-hmm. He said, well, no, my job is terrible. And that's the thing. You need to turn things around and have a different perspective and have a different attitude and look at what's right and look at what's going right for you and what will be going right for you. You have to start with the attitude and then turn that attitude like you do with a daily affirmation, as well as myself.
Or one of the things he had also wrote in about trying something new, maybe trying something new.
Yes, skydiving.
No skydiving
Hot
for
air
Bill.
balloon rides or something.
Or new goals, just like you shared in your monologue about some new goals, aspirations.
Oh, absolutely.
But definitely trying something new if you're feeling stagnant.
Trying something new could be a different way home.
You know.
And just going to grab a coffee somewhere where you not really grab a coffee. You're used to grabbing a coffee, or you go somewhere for dinner that you don't normally go to. You know, just to mix things up.
Yes, because he was just feeling challenged with just day to day.
But yes, you have to get that day to day in a different image. You have to, because if you look at it as the doldrum and stagnant, what is it going to be? It's going to be doldrum and stagnant for you. Just like debt. If you focus on getting out of debt, you're going to get into more debt because you're just focusing on debt. You need to focus on prosperity. That's the key.
Let's have Bill tune into your program.
Bill.
In May.
The 24th of May, 2024, 2 p.m. I'll get you the link. Just email me.
Yes, we'll get back to you on that one. I think that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Bill and Sarah.
Bill and Sarah.
And we are now from the West Coast, California. We have Chris from California with his challenges with relationships and family dynamics. He has 2 sons, a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. We have some challenges with behaviors and being defiant and some parenting.
Yeah, we actually talked about defiant children because I had a couple, actually 3. But the 2, when they were in high school, they would play video games and they'd get some creative language, which I didn't like at all. Some call it profanity. My wife would say they're just dropping F-bombs. But I didn't appreciate it. So instead of going up there and yelling and screaming, which I had done in the past, to no avail, I'm just basically adding fuel to the fire by screaming and yelling, you know? So what I did was, I said, you keep it up, we're gonna have a power outage.
Good example.
So when they kept it up, I went downstairs, hit the circuit breaker, shut it off. And they flip out. They said, oh, you erased all my stuff. Now I got to do this, that, and the other thing. And they were all ticked off. But now they understood that I'm no longer going to tolerate that.
And so, Betty?
Betty, right.
Because you're having to,
but Betty
work
is
together
understanding
with your
I'm being calm, calculated, and I'm responding to the situation. And that's what Chris needs to know with his unruly kids or challenges with parenting. It can be not so much a challenging with the kids, but with your spouse. You know what I mean? How you parent one way, she may not be parenting that way, and she might be getting upset with you for how you do it. But I think we're out of time.
I don't think so. Let's just wrap that up there with just a little bit more of your program dynamics of helping Chris and his wife.
Yeah. So what I would say
specifically,
Yeah. So what I would say with Chris, So what I would say
Thank
to
you.
Chris, really, to wrap things up, is just to take a look at the dynamic of what's going on and set a standard. what you're looking to do, what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate, and draw the line in the sand. This is what it's got to be, and it's a challenge for the parents because they have to enforce it. You know what I mean? The speed limit's posted. It's the police that pull us over. But if they don't enforce the speed limit, everyone's going to keep speeding, right?
You got it. You got it,
thing.
Paul. Hey, once again, Chris from California, tune in.
Tune in. Fourth Friday.
Paul, thank you very much. I
This
know
was
our
nice.
time has been cut, and we appreciate you being back, and
Yes.
we'll see you for the next
Wonderful.
show.
So we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Thanks again, Paul.
All righty.
Great.
Very
Thank
good.
you,
So long,
everybody.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a great afternoon.
Wonderful.